On today's show, is JJ Peterka available from the Buffalo Sabres? If so, Steve Staios has to make an offer.
And we continue with our 2025 draft rankings, and we have our first goalie.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, and Pilsy, Frank Saravalli over at Daily Faceoff has put his trade bait board up ahead of the NHL Draft, which is a month away, and JJ Peterka is at number one. Can we please reunite the Germans, get Tim Stützle, his goal-scoring winger, in Peterka?
Yeah, Ross, I think lots of Sens fans would like to have the use of a time machine, go back to that draft and draft JJ Peterka in the second round instead of Roby Järventie. Roby Järventie looked like he had some promise. Obviously, things have gone a little differently for him than they have for Peterka, but it would be nice, Ross, to have our good friend, the Leams Martian, have to rebrand Give It to the German to Give It to the Germans, plural, because those two together on a top line and growing up and being in their prime together on one team, our team, would be incredible.
It would, and I'm looking back at Twitter at Sens Central the day before the 2020 second round, and I said the best available players still on the board. We've got Noel Gunler, good thing that the Sens didn't take him, hasn't played an NHL game. Jeremy Poirier, still working his way up as a prospect. And there he was, ranked 27th on our rankings, JJ Peterka. It felt like a no-brainer at that point, but the Sens decided to go in another direction. And since then, JJ Peterka's career has gone in one direction, and that is straight up. After finishing his time in the DEL with Munich, he comes over and plays just about a full season in Rochester, scoring 28 goals, 68 points in 70 games, got his NHL debut, then plays his full rookie season in the NHL with 32 points, goes to World Championships, has 12 points in 10 games, then comes back in the last two seasons, improves to 50 points, and then last year, 68 points. Frank Saravalli says that multiple teams put in significant offers for Peterka at this past year's trade deadline. You got to wonder if one of those teams was a team that did make a trade with Buffalo and also acquired a top six winger with offensive upside in a separate deal.
Yeah, I think, Ross, you're on the right track here, that certainly there's a possibility that Steve Staios tried to get JJ Peterka at that trade deadline. I think maybe knowing that Zetterlund was also an option, we know him and the Sharks were talking about Zetterlund before, well, not before the Cousins trade, but while that was going on, and the Sharks wanted Norris, but Staios decided to go with the Buffalo deal instead and then work a separate deal for Zetterlund. But I think it's going to take a big price to pry JJ Peterka out of Buffalo. Now, the only thing, Ross, is, of course, the Buffalo Sabres want to keep JJ Peterka. This is a guy that's climbing in points. He looks like an elite goal-scoring winger, or even he's got great playmaking ability as well, like a two-way threat, and he's young. He's drafted and developed by the Sabres. The last thing they want to do is lose players like that. But the question is, Ross, how interested is JJ Peterka in staying in Buffalo? Because I think guys that have been there for a while, they can see the writing on the wall that it's been 14 straight years of missing the playoffs, and things aren't necessarily looking better or improving in their minds, possibly. And although the Buffalo Sabres have the leverage with him as an RFA, he's now gotten to the point where he's produced enough and he's propped up his own value enough that he can have some leverage, much like a Matthew Tkachuk or some of these other RFAs that say, hey, I know how good I am, and I know you've got the leverage, but I've got some leverage, and I'll sit out if I have to, if I don't get the deal I want, or if I don't get a trade out of a location I don't want to be in.
He's such an elite player. The price tag would be enormous to acquire a player like this. And yesterday we talked about Rasmus Andersson. Now he's got 1 year left on his deal. He's a UFA after. You mentioned RFA, of course, at 23 years old. Peterka will turn 24 in January of this upcoming year. One day, by the way, his birthday's 1 day before Tim Stützle's birthday. So they're certainly attached at the hip. They've played great together. If you go watch Tim Stützle's World Junior highlight video, Peterka is in almost every single one as well. But Peterka also is going to command an enormous salary right away. So it's not like you get that breathing room there. Our friends over at AFP Analytics, they do contract projections. Follow them on Twitter, AFP Analytics. They're a great follow. They have Peterka projected both a short-term and a long-term deal. For a short-term bridge deal, it would be 2 years at $4.6 million. And then on a long-term deal, you're looking at a $7.8 million contract. So how bad do you want it in terms of the assets you'd have to give up to get him? And are you able to fit that in to the lineup? Because the top line of Stützle, Tkachuk, and Peterka, that's among the best in the league, and nobody's older than 26 years old.
Yeah, that's the thing, Ross. Like the potential, if you're able to put that line together, I think, Ross, we've talked about trying to find that right wing player to play on that top line. I don't think there's many other names that I would put ahead of JJ Peterka in the league. Realistically, I mean, obviously there's guys like Rantanen, guys like that would be elite there. But realistically, JJ Peterka would be at the top of my wish list for a guy to fill that role.
So we know based on what Buffalo did at the trade deadline, they're not looking for another long rebuild, right? It would have to be a hockey trade.
Yeah, not even another long rebuild, Ross. The same to continue this rebuild. Let me repeat, 14 years of missing the playoffs.
They have so many good young players, though. Like, you got to think it's going to click eventually.
But
maybe,
yeah. How many years in a row can you say that, Ross?
Though? Well, 14.
Well.
No, not that they've actually had. That's like saying the Sens didn't perform for 7 years when clearly there were years in there where they were not good. But like the roster for Buffalo, I'd say the last 2 years at least has been good. They've got a lot of young talent on their NHL team. Like if they can't convince Peterka to stay, all of a sudden, what's Rasmus Dahlin think about that? What's Owen Power to a lesser extent think about that? Although Sabres fans would probably say he should be focusing on his own game when it comes to Owen Power. But like they're in a time here where they need players like Peterka. They need more of them. So they're going to be asking for Shane Pinto plus.
Yeah, or Ross, my mind goes more towards Drake Batherson.
Okay.
I think
imagine Ottawa swaps top 6 centermen and then top 6 wingers in the same year.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. But I just think at this point, Ross, they're looking for, not to say that Shane Pinto isn't an established NHL player, but guys that more they know what they can expect and count on for them. And Batherson's not a veteran, but he's been around long enough that you kind of have a better idea of where he's at. And he still has 2 years left on that deal at a nice price tag. So that allows the Buffalo Sabres to have a little bit of money to play with. Because I imagine JJ Peterka, even if he signs a short-term deal, Ross, I know you said AFP had him in the $4 million range, but I don't think that's what he would agree to.
Well, and he has so much leverage right now that I think he could command the long-term deal. Otherwise, somebody's going to give it to him.
And like you said, Ross, if he decides to walk and to make a fuss out of this, that creates such a toxic vibe in that room. And there's other guys like Bowen Byram. What are they going to do with him? He wanted to trade out of Colorado to get a better role. And because obviously he knows he's not going to play ahead of Cale Makar. And he goes to Buffalo where there's 2 first overall picks that are going to be playing ahead of him. And I believe he ends up spending most of his time in a bottom 4 role on that team, on a losing team. So he's probably not happy with that situation. I don't know, but Buffalo is in trouble. I don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to fix this. I don't think fans are happy with GM Kevin Adams. I don't think the Lindy Ruff reunion tour is going the way they thought it was going to go. Signing UPL to that long-term deal, maybe not the best play. So they just have so many question marks in the air. If I'm JJ Peterka and his team, I don't blame them for being like, hey, either you pay me enough that I don't care about losing every year, or you find me a situation to get out of here.
I've got a spicy offer for JJ Peterka, and it's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachio Pillsy here, guys. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Ross, I know you got the lightly salted pistachios there.
Sure do. They're delicious. The oysters of the tree, you crack them open. Oh, how nice is that? Right down the gullet. Perfect pack and go snack with so much protein.
Yep. If you don't want to deal with the shells, though, you can get the no shells variety. Grab and go snack for at your desk, on a road trip, or if you just need a quick protein boost. And Ross mentioned the protein. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I like a little more flavor to mine. I like the salt and pepper. Get a little bit of that light purple bag. And if you want to check out Wonderful Pistachios, you can find them in your local grocery store. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our very good friends over at Club EG. Whether you're male, female, junior, senior, good golfer, or you're brutal like me but love getting out on the course, it doesn't matter. Club EG has something for you. You can purchase a membership and play over 60 great courses that Club EG partners with in Ottawa. Join the golf league, go on a golf trip. It's completely up to you which path you take with Club EG. Check out clubeg.golf for more information and to learn about the many great options. The goal, it's simple. It's to get you playing more golf this summer. I know the weather's been brutal in Ottawa recently, but sunny skies are on the horizon early in June. So get out there and get playing 60 great courses through Club EG. You don't even have to be a member to take part in any of their events, leagues, or trips. But if you do want to play those 60 great courses day in and day out, there's an early bird special still going on at clubeg.golf. You can see all of the courses and everything to do with Club EG over at clubeg.golf. All right, Pillsy. So here at Locked On Senators, feels like we've been kind of slowly but steadily going through available options when it comes to the luxury purchases that the Senators could be after this offseason. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about more realistic options, depth players, guys who can come in and fill a role. But JJ Peterka, number one, not only on Frank Saravelli's trade bait board at Daily Faceoff, but in my heart as well. I truly believe he can be a 40-goal scorer at the NHL level. The chemistry with Tim Stützle, undeniable. We've been talking about getting Timmy a winger for a very long time. We've also been talking for a long time about keeping the 2025 pick. Sens prospect pool, they need help. Pillsy, 21 is absolutely on the table in a trade package for JJ Peterka. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would agree, Ross, but I don't think that brings a lot of value to the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay. Stop me if I'm going outrageously here.
Okay.
Fabian Zetterlund.
Okay.
Drake Batherson, and a first-round pick.
I mean, that's
probably the most the Sens could offer.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And if I'm Buffalo, I'm at the very least interested in that.
The problem is there's going to be 30 other teams that are calling about JJ Peterka.
Yeah, I think it starts with Batherson. And then,
imagine they sell them on the chemistry, the Norris Batherson. We got to send in the highlight reels that you made when we're working in Belleville together. Maybe that gets it over the line.
Big time. Yeah. And I mean, they would have seen a lot of those guys playing up against the Rochester Americans. Yeah, I think, Ross, that's probably around the type of value you're going to have to bring to get JJ Peterka out of Buffalo. Unless, Ross, it becomes one of those situations where, well, I guess this is kind of a bad example, but I was going to say Matt Duchene, where in Colorado, where literally the team and the player were like, no matter what, we're not getting this done. So you lose some leverage, but Joe Sakic pulled off a hell of a deal. But I'm not sure Kevin Adams could pull off the same deal, especially with the way the Cousins trade worked out. I don't know if he has that kind of pull, but if that's a situation where it's getting late into the season and Buffalo's like, well, we can't afford not to have JJ Peterka not play for us and for us not to have a new player come in and produce those points that we're missing, so we're going to make a deal. That's where things start to get interesting.
Such a good player. So let us know in the comments, what would be your top offer for JJ Peterka? Last one I'll ask you on this one, Pilsy. If they wanted Carter Yakimchuk, is that a non-starter for you? I don't think they'd want him personally.
I don't think so either.
But if they did,
I'm gonna say no. I want to keep Yakimchuk, especially with how that right side is looking. Not because I don't think the value is fair or that's not a return I'd want in Peterka, but I'm so excited for Yak, and they're not going to have a top defense prospect like this for at least the next 3 years. I feel like that's fair to say. Like, they're not going to draft one. They're not getting one at 21 this year. They're not going to get one next year in 2026, and by 2027 they're going to be picking in the late first round. So they're not going to get one there either. So yeah, I think you keep Yak. Final one I'll toss to you, Ross, is, let's say hypothetically, whatever the cost is to acquire him, what type of deal are you looking for Peterka? I assume you want to lock him up 8-year deal.
Yeah, probably. No, well, it'd be 7, or if you acquire him, is it then 8?
Oh yeah, I forget how all that works.
Either way, it would be a long-term deal for sure.
Yeah, and that would be a guy that I would bend the knee and be like, you can sign that guy to a long-term deal.
He's a stud.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that. Pilsy, before we get to our draft profiles today, we obviously follow the draft coverage over the Athletic all the time, and they do all sorts of different plays on mock drafts. Today it was if they were a GM, and they were alternating between Scott Wheeler, Corey Pronman, and Max Bultman. Corey Pronman had the Senators pick at number 21 and took a goalie. I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, nothing against
Ravensburg.
Okay, nothing against Ravensburg. We haven't got to him yet, so apologies that I didn't get that name right. We will get to
Ravensburg, and we'll get to it.
Okay, so neither of us know. Okay. No. Let me get this here. Ravensburgen. Nothing against him. I've seen the size of him. I know he's the top goalie prospect in this draft, but the Ottawa Senators right now, if they use their first round pick on a goalie, I would be very disappointed. And this is a hashtag goalie friendly show, Ross. So it pains me to say that, but that simply is not the need that this team has. I don't know if Corey Pronman has heard of Levi Merlainen. That's their blue chip guy. He's coming up in the ranks, and they have other goalies too. For me, Ross, I'm of the mind you should draft a goalie every single draft. But unless you're going to draft a goalie like in the top 15 or even top 10, and he's like the next guy, I'm not using a first or even a second round pick on a goalie, in my opinion. I think you try to get lucky and you try to take a big swing on a guy. I don't know, third round pick, maybe some goalie that nobody's heard of and everyone's scrambling to try to figure out who he is when they're drafted. Levi Merlainen comes to mind. So I just don't think that would be a smart decision by the Ottawa Senators to go that route.
No, it wouldn't. I said that I would have a temper tantrum back in 2022 if Ottawa had kept 7th overall and taken Kevin Korchinski, who we had, I think, at 19 on our final rankings. He had a good rookie season that hasn't been in the NHL since. Mm-hmm. I would have a full-on temper tantrum if they take a goalie. No disrespect to Mr. Ravensburg, who, by the way, had a 900 save percentage in the WHL this year and an 880 save percentage in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. It's the fact that Ottawa needs skill in their prospect pool. They have their starter locked up for 4 years, and they have a 22-year-old who will be 23 at the start of next season as a long-term plan.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Take a goalie late. I think Kevin Riedler is going to have an interesting year coming up after transferring to Penn State. You can never have too many goalie prospects. Ottawa literally has them all over the world with Kazakhstan native Vladimir Nikitin in the prospect pool as well. But to quote Pierre McGuire, they have so many other needs. This is not a fit. Now, ironically, he did say that about Carey Price being drafted by Montreal. So I hope that I'm not shooting myself in the foot with that one. But let's just say I respectfully very much disagree with them. I also disagree with the premise that it would be Ottawa's first blue chip goalie prospect since Robin Lehner. I'm pretty sure Philip Gustafson was as highly touted as Robin Lehner.
They didn't draft Philip Gustafson.
Right, but a goalie of the future. He said,
I think he's mentioning that.
No, acquires a hopeful goalie of the future it hasn't had since Robin Lehner.
Yeah. I mean, I thought you were going to go with Joey Decord, Ross.
Well, he's 7th round pick.
He's a number 1 goalie in Seattle and just won a world championship.
But as a prospect, like Philip Gustafson was at times considered like a top 3, top 4 goalie prospect in the league.
Big time. Yep.
So was Lehner ever that high? Maybe. They were both drafted in the 2nd round, by the way, Lehner and Gustafson. So the moral of the story is don't take the goal in the 1st round.
Yeah, it's not a move I want the Ottawa Senators to look at. And I don't think this scouting staff would pull off a move like that. Like if they wanted to, Ross, they had the chance with I'm blanking on
Wallstead or Kosa.
Wallstead. Yeah, they had the chance to go Wallstead. And I would have been disappointed with that, but I would have been like, you know what? I can get on board with this. But this time around, I don't think so.
No, me neither. Okay, on the other side, speaking of goalies, we got one in our draft profiles today. Not Ravensburgen, but Jack Ivankovic. And we've got a pure centerman. Lots of centermen in this draft profile ranking where it's like, are they going to be a center at the NHL level? Well, if Cole McKinney makes it, he will be a centerman. Let's learn about them next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Welcome back to Locked On Senators NHL Draft coverage. You can find it all over YouTube at Locked On Senators. We've got our draft rankings, which are on their own playlist over on YouTube, so you can go find them. Whenever a name comes up, you read an article on a guy, you want to hear more about how they could become NHL stars or at least contributors, you can go find that on YouTube. Full episodes available wherever you get your podcast. The 3rd segment of every show between now and the end of our top 50 countdown, where we are doing 2 per day, are available wherever you get your podcast. Please like and subscribe everywhere you get yours. 5-star reviews go a long way to helping the show grow. So too do the subscriptions over on YouTube. So please be a friend and tell a friend about LOSP. All right, coming in at number 42 on our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings, it is the leading scorer from this year's U.S. National Team Development Program under-18 squad. It's Cole McKinney.
Yeah, Cole McKinney is a very interesting prospect, Ross. With the NTDP in 60 games, he had 27 goals, 34 assists, good for 61 points. And in the U18s with Team USA, in 7 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. And he's committed to the University of Michigan for next season. So pretty typical path of a successful American prospect, if you ask me.
Feels like so far, and I mean, we've only done, this is our 8th profile, but I feel like we've already got multiple Boston University and multiple Michigan commits, including William Horkoff, who joined Michigan in the middle of this past season. Cole McKinney is 6 feet tall, 198 pounds, just turned 18 in March, and he's a right shot centerman. His highest rankings is our friends over at McKeen's that have him at 26. Bob McKenzie is at 38. Scott Wheeler at 40, Elite Prospects at 51, Craig Button at 56, Corey Prodman and Locked On NHL Prospects not ranked as of the time of this recording on May 28th. That means he comes in at 42 and his average rank is 42.2. What is there to like about McKinney if you're an NHL team hoping to add to your prospect pool?
I think there's quite a bit to like, Ross. He's a dual threat player, like you mentioned, 27 goals, 34 assists, so like fairly even in both categories. I really thought, looking at his highlights, Ross, that this kid's got great hands. He was pulling off some slick moves to get around or even go through guys. He can score in different situations. I saw him get breakaway goals, wristers from the circle. He can get those dirty goals in front of the net. And in the USHL games that he played, I believe it was, how many of those? 23. He had a shooting percentage of 23.8%. So he's able to put the puck in the back of the net when he gets the opportunities. And as a centerman, I think he's really good two-way as well. Like, you're going to see him make good plays on the other side of the puck. He plays both special teams, penalty killing and power play. Scott Wheeler mentioned that he's really good at faceoffs. And like we said off the top, he's a guy that, you know, some of these prospects, they're playing center in juniors and minor leagues. And you're thinking, okay, sure, they play center here, but once they get to the NHL, you're going to slide them over the wing. Not with McKinney. This guy is going to be a centerman. I don't think teams would even consider the idea of moving him off to the wing.
And Scott Wheeler also mentions that he expects McKinney to make the World Juniors team next season as an 18-year-old and play at the center spot. So for me, he's a safe, projectable pick that a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations should take, because at that point, you're not swinging for upside all the time. Sometimes if your top six is already set and signed long-term, this would be a great player where it's like, okay, eventually when we're making these runs year over year, we're going to lose some players to free agency that are going for a bigger payday. We're going to need to have another wave come in and help our bottom six and just not be afraid to put them out on the ice in situations, more favorable ones to start, of course. But it feels like with the fact he's going to such a well-respected program in Michigan, he's going to come out at a pro frame. Now, some would point to the fact that he's 6'0" as maybe you'd like your third or fourth line centerman to have a little bit more size, but he excels in the faceoff dot. And I think that those pro habits and pro systems will outweigh maybe a lack of pro height in that position, if that makes sense. And if he's 6 foot, 215 pounds, and can play on a penalty kill at the NHL level, he is going to have to work, though, on his skating a little bit. If he's going to get to the next level, that'll hopefully come for him in the development path. But you have to have a separating asset. You can be a good anticipation player. You can be good in the little areas. But at the end of the day, hockey comes down to shooting, skating, puck handling. And it feels like those three things, he's between average and good. It's not like those aren't the calling cards for him like they are for other players where you can point and be like, oh, that guy's a burner. Oh, that guy's shot is elite. Like, he's good, not great in those key areas, but where he does excel is the little things that would give you the sense that he will be an NHL player one day.
Yeah, I'm going to spin zone it though, Ross. This isn't kind of the jack of all trades that would put him in a negative light in my mind. I'd like to spin it more in a positive narrative, being like, this is a well-rounded player. I agree. He doesn't have that top attribute where you look at him and you know the one thing he does better than everybody. But for a guy that's going to project, in my mind, as a third line center, two-way, dual threat, I think he's a fine prospect. And Ross, maybe I'm off with this, but the player that kind of comes to my mind is a little bit of Shane Pinto, right? Like a guy that can shoot, pass, play a two-way game, excels at faceoffs. You're going to have him as a third line penalty killing center. Like, this guy reminds me a lot of Pinner.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if he's Shane Pinto at the NHL level, I think the team that drafts him is going to be thrilled. So do you think that means he's going to be an early second-round pick?
I got him going in the middle round, Ross, just because this
middle of the second round, right?
Yeah, what did I say?
Just middle round.
Oh, sorry. Yes, middle of the second round. Just because this draft is so diluted with other centermen. I think if this wasn't a center-driven draft, we would see him go higher because, like we mentioned, this guy's not going to move to the wing, and teams covet guys that they know are going to stay down the middle. But yeah, I got him going middle of the second round.
Okay, and your Sens stars for Cole McKinney.
I give him 3 out of 5 stars, Ross, which I feel like maybe I'm on a bit of a run here of 3 out of 5 stars, but that's because I like the player, but don't think he's the fit or will be in the range of the Ottawa Senators. I don't know, like the Senators don't need a guy that fits this profile because they have Shane Pinto, and I think Shane Pinto is going to be an Ottawa Senator for quite a while. So 3 out of 5 stars for McKinney here.
Okay, Cole McKinney comes in at number 42 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right, coming in at number 41, it's the first goaltender on our list. We're heading to the Ontario Hockey League, where we have Jack Ivankovic, who was elite the last time he stepped on the ice at the World Under-18 Championships, where he got a gold medal for Canada.
Yep, definitely good with Team Canada. His OHL team is the Brampton Steelheads, formerly the Mississauga Steelheads. Funny enough, he's a Mississauga kid, so he got to get drafted by his hometown OHL team. I mean, moving from Mississauga to Brampton, not like that's a huge change anyways, so it gets to stay in the area.
And guess what minor hockey league team he played for?
Mississauga.
Senators, the Mississauga Senators. So he's worn the jersey before, just saying. But all jokes aside, Jack Ivankovic, there's one thing that stands out, and it's unfortunate to say. I don't really want to lead with it, but we always do, the height, weight, and everything. He is under 6 feet tall. He's 5'11", 170, turns 18 this month in May. He's a left-catching goaltender, and Craig Button is extremely high on him, 23rd overall. Bob McKenzie has him at 48. Wheeler and McKean's Hockey, both at 47. He goes unranked by elite prospects, Corey Pronman and Sebastian over at Locked On NHL Prospects. The numbers don't jump off the page with Brampton. 25, 12, and 5 record in 43 games, a .903 save percentage, a 3.05 goals against average with 2 shutouts. But again, that World Under-18s was so extraordinary. 6-0 with a .961 save percentage. He also, and Ottawa hockey fans might remember, he did get into one game at the World Juniors this past year and was pretty damn good in that game. Now, it was a loss in overtime. It might have been a shootout, actually, if I recall correctly. But he had a .923 save percentage, 24 saves, and just 2 goals against. But he was the youngest goalie. He was 17 years old at the time, the youngest goalie to start a World Junior game since 1987 for Canada when Jimmy Waite did that. So he's one of those guys where he's clearly a big name for Hockey Canada, and you got to think that means the hockey men around the NHL are definitely aware and have high hopes for Jack Ivankovic.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's got the resume. Sparkling numbers in the U18s with Team Canada, 6-0, 961 save percentage, and a goals against average of 1.05 with 2 shutouts there. So that was really a massive showing for Ivankovic. But I don't know, Ross. We talked about the Ottawa Senators not reaching on a goalie in the first round. I think he's probably the second best goalie in this draft behind Ravensburgen. And I know it's old man hockey, but I'm not drafting a goalie that's under 6'2", especially under 6 feet. Not to say that it can't be done. I know UC Saros, there's all these guys that are smaller goalies that have proven everyone wrong, and they got that chip on their shoulder, and good for them. But for me, I don't think the Ottawa Senators, Ross, the Ottawa Senators don't even draft players under 6 feet. The average height for the Sens, what was it at the draft last year, Ross? Like 6'3" or something. So
easily. And Luke Ellenas being 6'2" pushed it down quite a bit.
Yeah, so I don't think they're about to draft a guy, a goalie they need to stop pucks with less surface area than the players that they're drafting to be skaters. Again, nothing against the kid. I don't want to make this sound like I'm down on him because his highlights are good. He's got good rebound control. He's really worked on having flexibility down low. Scott Wheeler did a full feature on him where it talks about how he does a lot of yoga, like really, really into yoga for mental and physical benefits. And he wanted to be able to do the splits. And when he's out of position, Ross, he can really get down low and cover the whole bottom half of the ice with his pad. So I give him credit there. And Scott also mentioned, I feel like this is so classic too, Ross. Ivankovic's dad made sure to mention,
yeah,
hey, I was a late bloomer too, and I'm 6'5" now. So don't give this small goalie label to my son here, because it's possible that he's gonna get a growth spurt later on, which it is a fair point. Brandon Piller, not a doctor. I can't dispute that. If there's a pattern in the family that they grow a little later, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, for me, I gave him 2.5 stars, Ross. I don't want the Senators, like, unless they're going to get him in the 3rd round, maybe I could see it. But even still, there's other goalies later on in the draft that I have more interest in.
Yeah, Wheeler even mentioned, and we know where they're getting this information, but he has a size 12.5 shoe. So does that mean that he's going to have that late growth spurt?
12.5?
Yeah, 5'11". His feet are almost, if you put them straight up on top of each other, might be as tall as him.
Yeah, holy, that's crazy. I'm 6'3" and I'm a 10.5. So that's a pretty big feat. No wonder he can cover the bottom half of the ice well. He's just going to turn his foot sideways.
There you go. Jokes aside, how many NHL goalies in the past 2 seasons are under 6 feet tall?
Well, Saros.
Yes.
I believe Jet Greaves.
No.
Oh.
Not listed at that. Although that's a very good thought. They have Jet Greaves at 6-0.
Okay. Well.
So, I mean, he's going to be 6 feet. So I think this is a redundant conversation. UC Saros is the only one, though. Under 6 feet tall, 5'11". But there were a few goalies who are 6 feet on the dot. It's obviously becoming less and less, but 8 goalies were 6 feet or under this year in the NHL. The only starters, Dustin Wolf and UC Saros. That's it.
And both of them are very good goalies. So again, I don't want to say it's impossible or you're making a mistake drafting a smaller goalie, because it's possible. And the guys that are doing it are like Saros and Wolf are incredible goalies.
Yep.
But for the Sens, I would be shocked, and the Sens have shocked me many times before with their draft choices, but this one would be crazy.
4th round, if he's available, take the goalie there. If not, another goalie. But he's got the resume, and he could be the starter for Team Canada at the World Juniors coming up. We'll see. I think Carter George, actually, is he aged out? He's a good goalie prospect too. He will be available next year. So maybe they'll run it back with the same tandem, Carter George and Jack Ivankovic, who comes in at number 41 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right, Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me, Ross, is it's looking more and more likely that we're going to see a rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals. But how banged up are these teams going to be going into it? You look at Florida, no Reinhart, Mikkola, he's the other guy that's out for them. Kachuk not playing near 100%, that's for sure. And then with Edmonton, Zach Hyman injured in last night's game, and he had to have surgery already. Brandon Piller, not a doctor, but if you're having surgery, I don't think you're going to be back in the next couple of weeks for a Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, it's too bad. But a rematch would be great. I mean, McDavid with revenge on his mind. At this point, that's what I'm hoping for. And by the way, my wife's bracket, Edmonton over Florida in the Cup Final. She went 6 for 8 in the first round, 3 for 4 in the second round. My Cup Final was Colorado-Tampa. So she might be hosting the show from now on.
Yeah, all right. Well, that'd be a fresh new perspective. We have mentioned, Ross, we have to have one day where we get Rachel and Simone doing an episode of Locked On Senators and see how it goes. That would be all time.
Ring of honor, most annoying traits for our significant others.
I think we'd have to extend it a couple rounds.
Yeah, 8-round draft. 8 round. Only 4 each? What the heck? This is
and
wild.
there would probably be some similar traits that they'd be fighting for in the top spots.
Yes, 100%. All right. Appreciate everybody for making us your first listen each and every day. The everydayers out there, Monday through Friday. We got our draft profiles dropping over the weekend individually on YouTube. Of course, they're the same ones you just listened to in the show, but around the draft time, when your team picks a player, it's good to be able to just jump into a 5-minute video and learn more about each individual player. Please be a friend, tell a friend, and like and subscribe everywhere you get your podcast. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.